more smoothly and more rapidly you're able to manage that process, the more opportunities you have of occupying that space in the ecosystem. I think there's a question here, or oh, okay, cool, great. So these additive features, these are the types of things that you want in your site that basically increases user engagement. We talked about just now in answering a question about making some content open and free. The more you can do that's open and free, or the more you can allow people to initially engage with your site on open and free content, the better. The ease with which your content is sort of becomes part of the web as a whole also is a very powerful thing. So the more your content can be linked into and linked out of, and the more people are willing to do so, the more powerful your website becomes. And very quickly, the higher your search engine ranking becomes. And now with Web 2.0 content, the easier it is for your content or your data to be embedded into other services and mashed up together with other APIs. The more chance that your site is just going to start bringing people there. And then composition, how easy it is for your information to be composed with other information to create new things is another very powerful function. And the web is becoming more and more a place where people just throw ideas together and see what happens. That ease of composition, I think, is something that just keeps bringing people back.
When you say embedding, do you mean embedding other sites in your site?
And vice versa, yeah. I've found that if you make your site a one-way street, where you're only embedding in, but you're not allowing people to embed out, for instance, is sort of a definite break on the ability of your site to sort of get more attention. So there's a lot of opportunity actually with, say, content aggregators like Dig and Reddit and such to put your interesting content there and get people to vote on it and perhaps learn about your site as well. So it becomes an interesting mechanism for basically engineers to do their own marketing by getting their content up on other sites that already have been able to generate a lot of appeal. Okay. There we go. Yeah, I wanted this one. This isn't meant to be a slide that says you will fail if you do this, but it's sort of a warning. Like, you may have a harder time than you expect if you do these types of things. And this is probably a good slide to do a little bit of question and answer on. But it tends to be very difficult for small startups to succeed where they're actually doing any of these functions. So in the privacy space, if you're locking your site up and making it, member only, it's very hard. It becomes that much harder to attract new members. If you're locking your data in, it becomes that much more difficult for other people to find out what it is you're doing. And it actually becomes more difficult for search engines to discover your site and make it useful. Lack of universality. If the niche that you're trying to occupy has big gaps in it, it can make it difficult. I'll give a little example here. You know, I was really interested in the launch of the Wolfram Alpha search engine, and I think it's a pretty cool site. And for a couple things that I know it does, I actually will go to it. But I have very little incentive to go there and just sort of type random queries, because I don't get a sense of being sure I'll get an answer. And for me, that's one of the biggest drawbacks to the site, because I guess I don't have the patience to learn what Wolfram Alpha can do before I use it. So I don't want to go through a big tutorial to find out, you know, these are the things that'll work. What I'd like to do is just sort of type stuff. And I wouldn't mind if Wolfram Alpha sent me a list of Google results, you know, like, I don't have anything for this, but but this is what other search engines are telling me. I'd stay at Wolfram Alpha a lot longer. This is an example of where I think sites can actually get in trouble, is if they purport, you know, to solve a particular problem, and then they only do it in a partial way. Swiss Army knives are websites that basically try to do a lot of things, but they don't necessarily do them as well as the best sites that do them. And it's very difficult to convince consumers that you know, it's the integration of all these features that makes it so much better than all the rest, because they typically tend to know one or two of the other services that you're trying to emulate, and they'll gravitate towards those that perform the service better. I talked a little bit about invite-only systems, and I talked also about inferior sign-up code. So I'd like to, you know, open things up to questions and answers maybe now for a little bit. But
what about the companies, the small startups that are trying to grow because they want to provide something, or they want to give you privacy that another site, you know, like, I don't know, YouTube shares videos publicly, but let's say you want to share them privately.
right.
Then what about something like this? I understand why privacy would make it hard for people to enter, but what if the premise of your thing is about privacy?
Right. So what I'm not trying to say is that there isn't a need for things like that. What I'm generally saying is that it's very difficult to succeed at growing a small company to a large company with that model. Now, if you're already a big company, like, you know, if you're already a Google, you can get the word out about your product to a lot more people right away, and, you know, get a lot of people to try it. And you may find that, you know, only 1 out of 1,000 stick, but if you're reaching 100 million users, you know, that's already a fantastic start, you know. And so big companies actually have a leg up on supporting features that the web doesn't of its own offer you. So IME actually had a wonderful, like, privacy system where, you know, we had things that you could share for yourself, for your friends of friends, for everyone within the service, and ultimately everyone on the web. So we had these, like, 5 levels of privacy, and we defaulted to sort of a more private level of data. And we found that basically our users weren't seeing that there was any data on the service. They're like, where's all the cool stuff? And the problem was, you know, they'd come onto the service and they didn't have any friends yet, and so they couldn't share all this cool private stuff with their friends, and they would leave. So the premise of, you know, people want privacy, I think, exists, but the tools for making that work for a small company are limited. And so, you know, we learned the hard way, and when we opened up privacy to the most